Hey, friends, it's Michael Kingswood, and I'm here on Saturday, having just posted up the Story Saturday video that for the day, or for the week, actually. Well, even though this is the second one for the week, you can find it live on all the video podcast channels as we speak. And this one is the reading of the 32nd story from my Stories from the Great Challenge collection of stories, which I 52 of them, which were written over the span of a year, one per week, as part of a writing challenge that I undertook and that I am recommencing this week to do it again. Crushed it the first time, we'll crush it this time too. Knock on wood, Lord willing, creek don't rise, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so it's a cool science fiction story. You should go listen to it after we finish up here, and you should go buy that collection, which is pretty awesome. Um, Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple, iTunes, all the other places that you love. But most the best way to go to get that collection and everything I've written is go to my store, michaelkingswood.com/store, right there on the where it's written on the bottom of the screen right there, because that goes through my business entity's web store, which allows me to get more profit, greater profit, and greater control, and a one-on-one relationship between you and me, customer and producer. Best thing ever. Anyway, we are continuing these streams on a daily basis because I want to, and as a discipline thing to maintain my focus on where I need to maintain my focus, and also because it's fun, and also because feed my diabolical narcissism. So yesterday, and we have been the last few days talking through the election guidelines for the California general election, which, even though there's been, ostensibly voting for the last couple weeks, the election day is actually on Tuesday coming up. And, those of us who like integrity in elections prefer to do things on election day because that's the way it's always been done. It's the way it worked well for hundreds of years until, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Well, why did we? The notion that we have to have it ongoing for a month and a half, 2 months, and you can't get out everything the day of is bull hockey. Anyway, yesterday we were talking through some of these ballot proposals, and I got to proposal 29, and then the network started fritzing out on me, and it became far too annoying to live, so I cut the stream off, and we are coming back to it today. So I don't entirely remember how much we got through on Prop 29, so we'll just start at the beginning with it. So Prop 29 is entitled, let me read the official title, the Protect the Lives of Dialysis Patients Act. Now this one, most of these propositions haven't had much advertising, but this one has. The online betting ones had some, but this one had particularly interesting advertisements because they were TV spots, YouTube spots, things like that show up, and it shows us very nice looking actors who are more older, and they're like, I'm on dialysis, and if I don't get dialysis a couple times a week, I will die. If this proposal doesn't go through, my dialysis center will close and I will die. I don't want to die, so support Prop 29. That's how these spots go. Now, what does Prop 29 actually say? Well, the proposal. Prop 29 includes several requirements. It requires each dialysis clinic to have, at its expense, at least one physician, nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant on site during all hours patients receive treatments at that clinic. This person must have at least 6 months of experience providing care to kidney patients and is responsible for patient safety and the provision and quality of medical care. Clinic may ask California Department of Public Health to grant an exception for this requirement if there are not enough physicians, nurse practitioners, or physician assistants in the clinic's area. If that exception gets approved, the clinic can meet the requirement through telehealth. The exemption lasts 1 year. Okay. It also requires clinics to report dialysis-related infection information to the public health department every 3 months, and it will be posted on the website for the public to see. Okay, cool. It requires a clinic to give patients a list of all physicians who own at least 5% interest in the clinic when they're starting treatment each year after that and any time the patient asks for it. It also requires the clinics to report to the public health department every 3 months who owns at least 5% of the clinic. And they have to post it on their websites too. Not unreasonable. If a clinic or its owner does not report the required information, they can get a penalty of up to $100,000 fine against the clinic. And of course, they can never request a hearing if they disagree with it, and it would be any penalties have to go to implement and enforce the laws concerning clinics. Okay, not unreasonable. If a clinic plans to close or reduce its services, Prop 29 requires the clinic to notify the Department of Public Health in advance in writing and get the department's written consent. The position allows public health to determine whether or not to consent. It allows public health department to face its decision on the information like the clinic's finances and its plans for making sure patients have uninterrupted dialysis care. The clinic may dispute the public health department's request decision with a hearing. And under this proposal, clinics are required to offer the same quality of care for all patients. Can't refuse patients based on how they're paying. All right, so I see where the sob story advertisement comes from. It comes from that second to last thing, that the clinic can't just shut down. It has to get permission from the government before it shuts down. And when it does shut down, it has to make certain that its patients have someplace else they can go. Which is a far cry from saying if you don't pass Prop 29, my clinic's going to close and I'm going to die. Much different than the advertising makes it sound. Now, is that a reasonable provision? Most of these provisions are reasonable, right? You have to report information in infections to public health. Yep, sure. Have to tell the patients who owns it. 100%. Fines for not giving the information required. Okay, I guess you got to have a reason to incentivize people to do what you want them to do. And you can't discriminate based on how things are paying. That's on its face reasonable, but I mean, there's methods of payment and there's methods of payment, right? There are a lot of, I'm not a med doctor, but I've talked to doctors, and I know from doing just reading on the subject, there's a bunch of doctors who will not take Medicare patients, for instance, or other certain insurance companies just because they're such a pain in the neck to deal with, where it takes them years to get paid, or they get paid pennies on the dollar, or whatever. And there are other docs who will, right? It's so the notion that I guess I don't like this last provision because it's a business, right? If the government wants to dictate that, these people are putting these sort of things with people who think that government should be running healthcare anyway. So hey, just have the government do it if they don't want anybody to choose how to pay. But as long as there's somebody who's running their own business, they ought to be able to decide if they want to who they want to take money from or not. Especially if some of these, I have no experience with these various insurance companies, but I got to imagine some of them are probably such pains in the neck that it's just not worth it. because all the extra work you got to do with it, or the headache. Yeah. And Lord knows there's like a billion of these clinics, so uh, it's the not like there's not other options for patients. And that goes to the getting government permission to close your clinic. So you're going bankrupt. Oh God, I gotta close. I'm out of money. I can't run it anymore. I gotta close down. Government says no. You have to keep going. Well, how? How? And why is it the government's? How is that in any way a government function? So no. So overall, based on the A, dishonest advertising, and B, yeah, I don't know, those two provisions make this sounds like a very difficult thing to support. Now, the requirement to have a physician or a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant on site all hours that they receive treatments. Do they not do that already? I mean, how do you get and dialysis is a pretty, I mean, you're hooking people's, as I understand how dialysis works, it's basically like a blood transfusion kind of thing where you're cleaning somebody's whole entire blood supply out, right? And so how are you not having some sort of senior person on present when you're doing that? Well, maybe they haven't been. Maybe they've just been having some phlebotomist going and inserting IVs and saying, "Hey, how many, good luck." But that strikes me as odd, as unlikely. So, 29 seems kind of hokey to me. All right, so Prop 30. Prop 30. Let's read the official title. Prop 30 shall be known as the Clean Cars and Clean Air Act. Okay, we don't have those already. All right, so the proposal, beginning in January 2023, Prop 30 requires taxpayers with incomes above $2 million each year annually to pay an additional 1.75% on the share of their income above $2 million. This additional tax will end by January 2043. Yeah, right. The tax could end several years earlier if California is able to drop its statewide greenhouse gases below certain levels before then. Wait, what? All right, so the Prop 30 requires that the revenue from the new tax go to increasing fundings for zero-emission vehicles and wildfire activities. So, about 80% of the total revenue is for two zero-emission vehicle program categories: payments to help buy new vehicles. Most of this money must be used to help households, business stuff pay part of the cost of the new zero-emission vehicles, which are not zero-emission, right? Because it's just a shell game, shoving the emissions to a different part of the supply chain, but we won't talk about that. The rest of money would be going to available to other programs. Okay. The other money would be to install and operate charging stations all over. Hey, California, what about building power plants? Need power plants to make electric vehicles work, but let's not talk about that. For each category above, at least half of the money must be spent on projects that benefit people who live in or near heavily polluted and or low-income communities. Right. The other 80% would go to the other 20% rather would go to spent on wildfire response and prevention activities. So what, they're just gonna lock up Antifa, right? Lock up Antifa and keep the FBI out of the state. That'll take care of all the wildfires. I'm mostly joking about that. Mostly. But there's no doubt there's some of the fires in the last few years were intentionally set. That's been well documented and people have been prosecuted for it. So, it is. In general, the state would have to prioritize spending to hire, train, and retain firefighters. That's a good thing. And the rest of the money would be used for other wildfire response and prevention activities. So they're thinking that the new tax on high-income taxpayers would raise between $3.5 and $5 billion annually, growing over time. So here's how this will work, right? You're the kind of guy who's making more than $2 million a year. You have your own business, or you're an actor. But regardless, but if you're an actor making that much money, you have a corporation that all your acting money goes into, and then you do all this sort of thing. So the reason this won't work is because people who have a lot of money, make a lot of money, they don't make a lot of money themselves. Their corporate entities do, right? And or they have enough shelters so that so you just told people, hey, make sure you don't have more than $2 million income a year on the books. So there's literally a billion ways to make it not have $2 million of income on the books, even though you made much more than that. And this is intentionally done, legally done through corporate law, tax law, all these sort of things. So they're not going to get the $3.5 billion extra that they think they're going to get. And no, they're not going to get it, because people either will go through shelters and loopholes like we just talked about, or they'll just officially become domiciles of a different state or whatever. But it's not gonna happen. Well, I mean, I guess keep printing money, of course, by 2043, when they say this tax will end, the $2 billion might be like $100,000 in today's money. So I guess we'll see. But so I find the funding stream to that dubious, and the purpose behind it silly, because electric vehicles are a shell game. They're dumb. And you can't have a bunch of electric vehicles unless you build power plants. In California, it's not building power plants. Well, they'll say, oh yeah, we've added a whole bunch of extra capacity to the grid using renewable resources, green energy. Well, that's cool. That's cute, but it's not true, right? Because case in point, my previous house, we had solar panels on it, 4.5 kilowatt panels. You know how much time a day it actually developed 4.5 kilowatts of power? Yeah, for about 3 hours on either side of noon. The rest of the day it didn't. At night, it does nothing. So, but they go and you get credit for that whole 4.5 kilowatts. Like, hey, we added 4.5 kilowatts to the as though that's somehow always available to the power grid, but it's not. Same thing with windmills. You go with however many megawatt generations of windmill power. You say, yeah, we've added this 200 megawatts of windmill power generation. Oh, well, that's great. Until you do the research and find out that windmills generate power a little less than 30% of the time. And even when they are generating power, it's not always at peak capacity because wind speed and other things. So it's only capacity on paper. You have to have real power plants to meet real demand. And we're not doing that. California's not doing that. And they're not going to do that based on what these jokers are talking about. So this entire proposal is stupid for that reason. So, hoo-yah. So that's my thoughts on those two proposals. We have one more, Prop 31. And then there's, we can go into candidates, but we're not going to do that on the stream here. So since tomorrow is Sunday, I'm not going to have a super long stream. It will basically be reporting that I finished my story for the week, and we'll go through Prop 31, and then we'll find another topic for future discussions. But for now, that's this one. Hey, look, we've been going about 20 minutes. All kinds of fun. Since I have limited viewership, I have never bothered to bring up the stream, but yeah, looks like no streamer, no comments. So hey, cool. I'm gonna call it. I got some things to do, and then I'm gonna start go make my Saturday night money making deal. So I'm gonna sign off. Hope you guys have fun. I'll talk to you later on. Go check out Story Saturday, Terra Infirma. Fun story. You'll like it. Then go buy the collection. All right. Have a good one.